Hi, we're going to talk about data store objects in this unit. There are four major learning goals. First, to describe DSOs and their purpose. And two, to distinguish three major types of DSO and their usage. And three, to describe the architecture and the activation process of a standard DSO. And finally, to create and configure DSOs. Okay, first of all, what is a data store object, or DSO? As the name implies, this is an object that is used to store data. Okay, so it is a storage location for consolidated and cleansed granular data in a data warehouse. Okay, now notice that in a data store we store granular or detailed data, also called, some people use the term document level or atomic level. Basically, it means that the most detailed data is stored here. This is in contrast to other objects such as info cubes that we will talk about in another chapter. In an info cube, we normally store aggregate data, okay, data that is aggregated so that we can produce summary reports, things like that. Okay, but in a DSO, we'll store the most detailed data. It can be a type of info provider, which means can be used as the basis for queries. And thirdly, it is a flat table made of key fields and data fields. Okay, again, this is in contrast to an info cube, which we'll talk about in more detail later on in another chapter. But basically, we're talking about for DSOs, they are kind of like two-dimensional tables or spreadsheets, if you will. So a regular table made of key fields and data fields. Finally, they support delta updates into info cubes, other DSOs, or master data tables in the same system or in different systems. Okay, so once data is stored in a DSO, then it can be further uploaded to other objects. Okay, there are three types of DSO as shown in this table. Standard DSO, write optimized, and direct update DSOs. In the second column, it shows that in terms of structure, standard DSOs, they have three tables. Okay, so each DSO is made of three tables, which we will describe in more detail later on. The three tables are activation queue, active data, and change log. Whereas in the other two types of DSOs, they have only one table. Okay, both of them have just one table, which is active data table. Finally, the third column, it shows that in what way do data come into a DSO data supply. Basically, a DTP is used to load data into both standard and write optimized. But for direct update, we'll use API for application programming interface. Okay. Next, usage scenarios. Basically, when do we use a standard DSO, for instance? Okay, now as illustrated in this diagram, standard DSOs are normally used as a data storage when we load data from outside sources into the data warehouse. Okay, as I have talked about before, when we have data coming in from some data source, normally data is stored in PSA first, right? For persistent staging area. So for instance, we have two data sources, one for order data and one for delivery data. So we have two PSAs in the staging area. And from there, data is further uploaded to two DSOs. Okay, one order DSO and one delivery DSO. So that's the first level of use of a DSO. Basically, getting data from the PSAs to DSOs, and then we can also have a second level of DSOs. That is, another DSO can be created so that data from order and data from delivery are combined into one DSO. Okay, so you see there are two levels of DSOs used in the example there. And finally, from that second level DSO, data is then further loaded into an info cube. Okay, so that's the basic scenario for using a standard DSO. Okay, the second type of DSOs are write optimized. The usage scenario is that it is normally used as a staging area when we have large data sets that we want to provide data into a data warehouse. Okay, as the name implies, it is write optimized so that we can get large amounts of data into the data warehouse quickly in a DSO. Okay, shown in the illustration. So again, from a PSA, we'll load data into a write optimized data store object, and from there, data can then be passed into another DSO. Let's say used for corporate memory purposes, and then also data can be further uploaded into three standard DSOs. Okay, one for each market. For instance, Asia Pacific. I guess the middle is European countries, and the third one is Americas. Okay, and then from that point on, data can be further uploaded into additional info cubes. Okay, so again, basically, the idea of a write optimized DSO is to use as a staging area for large amounts of data coming into a data warehouse. All right, finally, the third type of DSOs, direct update. The usage scenario is that normally they are used as a storage area for external applications or APD. APD stands for Analysis Process Designer, which we've talked about before as a piece of software in the BW architecture that is used mainly for advanced analytics, okay, such as data mining, which we will talk more about in a separate chapter. Okay, so for instance, after we perform data mining, we get some results, and we can then write the results back to BW, and then we store the results in a direct update DSO. Okay, or it can be used to get data from another application that is external to BW, but this way data has to pass through some kind of API. Okay, so that's the use of a direct update DSO.
Okay, a review question for you about DSOs. Here's another question.